But recently, labs have been getting better at keeping embryos alive.
The hope has been to let nature take its course and keep them in culture for a few more days up to the stage we call the blastocyst, when really the embryo proper starts developing. And the thought is at that stage, nature will have selected, in our incubators, the best embryos.
By transferring back only 2 embryos at the blastocyst stage, doctors avoid the risks of multiples without diminishing the chance of a pregnancy. But not every embryo can make it to the 5th day. At Cornell University, Elissa and Darren anxiously await news about their 13 fertilized eggs. Fortunately, 8 have become viable blastocysts. Now the challenge is to pick the 2 that are most likely to survive.
Yes, there is a possibility of having twins, and I'd be ecstatic. I'd be like so happy. You know, I even joked, you know, can I request them? And they're like, no. But you just want something to stick, and hopefully it will work. But if it doesn't, we would do it again.
Although more than half the couples going through IVF walk away childless, Darren and Elissa hope that they will be the lucky ones who defy the odds. Back in the lab, their 2 embryos are located beneath the microscope and carefully sucked up in a catheter. Having live embryos transferred to her womb will be the closest Elissa has ever come to being pregnant. But to become babies, they must implant.
You're not going to feel much, but what it does is it just goes through the cervix, right? With blastocyst transfer, we have a very high success rate. Nevertheless, it's age dependent. And in the early 30s, it's 50%. It's still 50-50. At the end of the day, it's the biology and the competence of that embryo. And that depends on both the egg and the sperm and the combination. This was as smooth as...
The most difficult part of IVF is every day you're waiting for results in something. Waiting to find out how much sperm and how many eggs there were. Then a day later, waiting to see, hey, when are they gonna inject them back into you? And that, you know, that was very stressful. That was 4 days of just waiting, and now you don't hear anything until you find out if you have a child or not. So now will be the greatest of all results, but you won't know for 2 weeks. One final question. Were they above average, the 2 that you put in?
They
or?
were very, very... I mean, she has the pictures. You can see it. Very nice embryos.
All right, we'll put that on the refrigerator. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I very much
So
appreciate
good luck.
it. Thanks.
Okay, very good.
As technology advances, the treatment of infertility has been transformed from a small medical specialty into a $4 billion a year industry.
I can sit and vary the CO2.
At this trade fair, sales teams from all over the world pitch their services to doctors, hospitals, and couples desperate for a baby.
Why are you doing this? Goals in life, things like favorite movie, what's your...
The Center for Surrogate Parenting is in business to find surrogates and egg donors for infertile couples.
Whether they're still alive, what diseases they have. Now,
This field started with everybody thinking that it was ungodly, satanistic. I couldn't get a doctor to even talk to me when I first started. I was considered such a maverick. Doctors were afraid of being put in jail. I cannot think of any other field of medicine that in 20 years has gone from being a pariah to being considered a mainstream this quickly.
CSP professional fee due upon confirmation.
Many clinics insist that egg donors remain anonymous. But Bill Handel has launched a thriving business, finding applicants willing to reveal their backgrounds and matching them with infertile couples.
What's going to come up for you, and we're going to click on...
Our internet site, eggdonor.com, offers the profiles of 300 of our egg donors.
What are you looking for?
Do you have Jewish donors?
Absolutely.
In our area?
And your area is?
In California?
Yes, we do.
Okay, just click Jewish here?
Yes.
You can go on blonde, blue-eyed, Caucasian, Christian woman. And it will then select everybody in our database that has those characteristics.
Bringing a third person into the reproductive process raises many troubling questions. For an infertility patient like Anne, turning to egg donation or even adoption meant forsaking a biological tie to her child. As she grappled with this dilemma, the research team at St. Barnabas Hospital was pushing forward a new frontier of reproductive biology, involving the exchanging of parts from one egg cell to another. They offered Anne an experimental procedure called cytoplasmic transfer, designed to help women whose eggs divide inefficiently.
The reason that an egg might not be able to do its job very well is that it may have abnormal chromosomes inside. On the same hand, there's a possibility that there's a defect in the ability of the egg to distribute its normal chromosomes. And we most suspect that that's true in younger women who we believe still have genetically normal eggs and in whom the usual in vitro fertilization techniques uniformly result in very poorly developing embryos.
The procedure would preserve the nucleus of Anne's eggs that contain over 99% of her chromosomes, the DNA or genetic material that makes her unique. She would borrow from a donor egg a portion of its cytoplasm, containing tiny cellular structures. Among them are thousands of mitochondria that provide energy for the cell to divide, and incidentally, carry DNA for a small number of genes. In theory, a deficiency in the cytoplasm might prevent an egg from developing normally.
The idea behind it was that if there were situations where it appeared that the cytoplasm was damaged or insufficient in one way or another, even if one was unable to say precisely what it was that was wrong with it, one might be able to replace it with presumed normal cytoplasm.
Cohen and Willardson experimented with animal models, mixing the cytoplasm from different mothers of the same species. As they had hoped, the babies appeared healthy and normal. Although the doctors felt confident enough to proceed, Anne struggled with the risks.
When you're left with these choices, egg donation or adoption, or doing this new procedure, egg donation, you don't know who is donating this egg. It's all anonymous egg donation. You don't know any dispositions towards illnesses, whether it be mental or physical illnesses. And you don't know how your children are going to react to the news when they grow up, that they are not genetically your child. With adoption, you have the same risks, except the adoptive mother can want this child back in their life. So you're looking at three options that are risky, and you have to decide emotionally, medically, and financially which have the fewer risks.
Deciding to proceed with cytoplasmic transfer, Anne and a donor had their eggs harvested. Then, Cohen removed the cytoplasm from the donor's egg, carefully avoiding its nucleus.
One could argue, as indeed some people are arguing, that all this is unnatural and shouldn't be done and just leave it alone. But on the other hand, if we want to gain more insight that can be a benefit in the area of human reproduction, well, then every now and then the boundaries have to be moved a little bit. You simply cannot gain experience without experimenting, and it's as simple as that.
By using the fertilization technique of ICSI, donor cytoplasm can be safely injected into Anne's eggs, along with her husband's sperm. 3 days later, when the developing embryos were examined, they appeared less fragmented. 4 were selected for transfer.
I think looking at the pictures of the 4 embryos that were transferred in a final cytoplasmic attempt and compare them to the photographic material we have available from the previous attempt, there were more cells and the cells looked healthier. And therefore, my impression is that at least in 1 or 2 of the embryos, there seemed to be a higher chance of development.
I said, I'm going to do the 3 tries. If I don't get pregnant, then we'll start the adoption.
Unlike Anne, the majority of patients who turn to IVF are in their late 30s or early 40s.
The thing is,
Many find it difficult to get pregnant simply because of the age of their eggs.
Melanie and Laura.
Our peak fertility is in the mid-20s, early 20s, and yet most of us are delaying childbearing till the late 30s. Now, it is clear that one of the reasons the older patients don't get pregnant with the same efficiency as the younger patients is that the embryos are chromosomally abnormal at a higher rate, and it all correlates with the egg and what happens to the egg.
During a woman's childbearing years, one egg is ovulated each month. If it is fertilized, it will replicate its chromosomes and then divide, splitting them in half.
Now, when that process happens in a young woman's egg, it goes along just fine. When it happens in an older woman's egg, it doesn't. Chromosomes get lost or are missing, and you make an unhealthy embryo from that. So the theory is that there's something in the machinery or the cytoplasm, not the nuclear portion of the egg, but the surrounding portion of the egg, that moves those chromosomes around that causes these defects in the older woman.
To avoid the possibility of chromosomal damage, Griffo went one step further than cytoplasmic transfer. He carefully took the nucleus from an older woman's egg and injected it into a younger donor egg that had had its nucleus removed. The reconstructed egg was then fertilized and allowed to divide